Hello, everybody. This is Jun Chan, and we are back streaming. And I finished dinner after playing a nice RimWorld session, and had a bit of wine just to let you know. And I was watching this lovely YouTuber, um, Adam Millard, the who has the really great nickname of the architect. Okay, I don't know how to write, but that's fine. Architect of games. And, I mean, the content, sure, is great. Please go check it out. But I started thinking about what I was doing with you earlier on the stream before I played RimWorld, which is when I was looking at these UX ideas. And seeing the talent, like something that I consider like really well produced, a way to do narrative that's also full of a personal touch and still depth and sophistication. And I thought, in fact, one big component of what makes this the case of the polish is the quality of the script combined with the quality of the vocal performance. So then it made me realize that if we are going towards more polish in this direction here, then it's possible that the process that I was mentioning earlier, which is one where we're actually able to distribute, so that we've laid out the work in such a way that uses a sort of very simple design patterns to, and I'm talking about UI here, user interface design patterns, like a simple grid, right? And the ability to maybe fold it along one of its axes, and that this meaning something, whether also you do this at the bottom or at the top, and everything being interactive, and it's visual or it's a spatial allocation being meaningful in the role it plays. So sort of the alignment of syntax and semantic. So I thought, well, in fact, if at the end of using, or as one of the life cycle moments or points in the user journey of the use of this tool, maybe we move from this grid syntax to one that is in fact more about timelines. And so then we need to basically, we lost the simplifying constraint on the width in the rectangular interface here. So that creates a cognitive burden that is more than a perfect grid. But also something that I guess when it's probably mapped to different. Actually, hold on one second. Yeah, it would be mapped onto different. Different meaning in terms of both the x-axis, which would still be time, but time mapped onto now not an idealized, performance, or so something that is easier to grasp in the now, in the performance of the now. Whereas a representation like this would be, I suppose, in some ways, with time more grounded in its sort of shared and therefore more objective quality. So a transformation of the x-axis, you could say, right? So that's so we're going from this grid interface to, and via a transformation of the x-axis, to a timeline interface, where time is grounded in real time. I'm now realizing that this is more of the real-time interface possibly, but now this is more like the constructed time, right? This is it's the time that underlines the timeline. Right. Okay. So that's fantastic. Right. And the other thing that I guess comes from thinking about this transformation in a kind of symmetric manner is the fact that there's maybe possibly a grouping of the y-axis is what comes to my mind without even trying to properly figure out what this means, but overlays in the final YouTube results can pretty much be skipped. So there's a selection of y-axis tracks, right? In, I guess, or I mean rows, yeah, it's just a row. And which means the filtering and possibly grouping. I was thinking maybe grouping. So let's see. Right, I mean audio and video would be on different tracks, detecting silence, like the way composition does, and that could be definitely done on sort of audio track. But I think I'm drilling down a bit too much. I need to think about just whether this display becomes just a single row here, or whether in fact it makes sense to almost have the scene somehow drive, so that there's this kind of like Gantt chart-like cascading progression that occurs, where it's super clear what the transition point is. And at the same time, it allows to have components. And, you know, maybe subcomponents or something. Yeah, who knows? Maybe subcomponent. Okay, let me rewrite this. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure what is in fact the good design pattern there for editing. I mean, yeah, arguably you want it simple. Arguably you want to try and keep whatever you had there, but here the scenes, they don't really have a linear progression. So you need basically, yeah, there's the big thing that's introduced in the passage from one to the other, which is this idea of a script, really. And so let me, in fact, consider that we want to say something about this, I guess, data structure. And that is a script. We're moving like so. Okay, so that's a script. And I'm sort of proposing that some of it depends whether the source material is improvised or not, right? So that's less of a UI design pattern. That's more of a kind of user journey pattern. So it comes before in our thinking. And so, yeah, there's basically the starting point is improvised, not improved. Can be improved, but improvised or scripted. I mean, right now I'm really interested in the improvised starting point, right? So that leads to this particular workflow, but possibly you jump in with a script, or at least even in the performance mode or improvised mode, you would still probably have bits of scripts, like drafts at the beginning or something. In fact, you could say that, well, at the top like that, they're sort of assigned to what happens during the live performance, right? But so, yeah, what it means is that basically the script, there can be a back arrow here. In a semi improvised mode or a okay, do it in... Didn't realize that it would do this in... There's something strange going on with the arrow. But yeah, an arrow of 2, that's something that wasn't, or 3 even, 4, 5, or... I'm not sure what's up with the arrow. I'll delete it. And I'm sure there's a better tool than the one I'm using right now, but it still is pretty cool, no? Okay. Yeah, I'll look at it from this direction right now. And so, so in this case, we prepared some basic notes. So I guess you could say maybe there's a zooming effect here. So I'm missing diagonals. At this point, I'm missing diagonals, but maybe that's because I'm fixating too much on how it looks, and I need to go back to how it's structured. So starting point is if it's improvised, and now I'm kind of looking at whether it's in between the scripted and improvised. But for instance, what I'm doing right now, this is completely improvised, right? I'm coming back after dinner, I have this idea, like I mean, it's completely improvised is not right? Basically, what there is in the back of it is sort of a year of logging about like thoughts around this, and not necessarily publishing any of them until now, where I'm doing a first distillation of it, meaning it's in the back of my mind because I've been thinking about these things for a while. But I'm picking on one idea, which is or something that I hadn't considered before, which is this particular, what makes this kind of videos really polished and really well done is how well they're scripted. So the translation of this particular thought onto this diagram is to say that there is a direct relationship between like the end product of the kind of the script module or something. I'm actually going to make it bigger. The end product of the script is going to be narrated or read. And that's not even the complete picture. So, okay. It's not the complete picture because because obviously not everything is written. And so the balance between how much is actually improvised and how much is scripted, and how you transition between improvised and scripted, is really important. But I would say that, so some of it is about the starting point. For instance, starting improvised means that I don't need to have any written script before I just, fire up Streamlabs and start streaming. I guess because of the work that I've done before to, organize the studio and whatnot, but and what I mentioned before, the kind of thinking that I've done before. But let's say I'm properly equipped, but to throw into a performance which is in some way improvised, but where I'm doing software design and software architecture around some of these streaming. I guess these things that surround streaming, and the things that surround Twitch and YouTube. We can call it like that. It's simpler. Okay. Okay, that's a meta thought that just came in after I said that. So that's a kind of a script refactoring. And in fact, this could kind of happen in the transition between performance and the the release of an edit. Okay. So script is a huge part of all this, basically. And that's especially true in my kind of thinking because I think it would include basically a data track here. So I'm going to add this. I was wondering whether I should call it metadata, but let's call it data, right? Sure, the rest is data as well. It's all good. This is data. Hello, data. So there's like, well, you know, there's this log file. Give some examples, right? And, you know, there's things like GitHubs, right? Yeah, GitHub. Okay. Let's just say Git, right? And then what else? Well, various URLs, links, right? That I usually paste as the ends of my logs. So that's, in fact, right now I capture everything in the log, but the idea that this could be structured. There's like global things like schedules. They're more part of arguably metadata, maybe context. Okay, so script is big, and arguably, I mean, one of the really used tool in TV production is the teleprompter, right? For narrating or. So for instance, for me, it would be totally useful to be able to say, well, I want the script, whatever version it is that, you know, I start with, that's meant to support a performance that has some element of scriptedness to it. And, you know, yeah. But then what I would want is it to be plugged into a tool so that I can actually have an overlay that you guys don't necessarily see. And that actually also can be, you know, immediately uploaded as subtitles, you know, so that there isn't such a thing as the Google or YouTube text speech-to-text analysis or speech recognition, ASR. But that instead we just, you know, pass maybe the original script or pass a more detailed script. So right now I'm just, there's a few things that are uncovered maybe at the, sort of like, we're still in UX here. So it seems like UI is a little bit driving UX, at least from the information architecture standpoint right now. But right now I want to talk about a role in some sense. So there's the performer role. In TV, this can be 100 people, right? I mean, that make up the what we're trying to do with maybe a single person there with a physical interface of sorts, just buttons to click on, with hopefully some visual feedback on them, but and a file with a script, and then boom, fire it up, and then also have people come and help you and do the editing and whip up a semi-professional edited version or several of it, with nice title sequences and no breaks, and really important bit that came out of this idea about where the polish comes from is that if we think about it in terms of workflow, then one key element between just slicing and dicing the existing audio and video and data that comes from the performance and moving to a point where you say, actually, hold on, here, 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 and here, we need to do a new take. And in screen-based or screencasting like this with only the voice narration, then you can actually afford to only redo the narration, which is exactly what Adam is doing there. And so I guess one key element that I should add in here is kind of the element of how would I call this? I mean, in the audio world, this is sometimes called a re-re, I think, as like a re-recording. Or not. Okay. Okay, maybe I'm thinking about something else. But you know what? This is how it's called now. So there's a chance, right, that after some kind of title sequence that would be at the beginning, which, by the way, something I've been thinking about, in fact, and I am really definitely now struggling for arrows and such. So you know what? Let's move on to Google Drawings. Google Drawing. It's Drawings, actually. And I suppose we could export this. Oof. Okay, so not being on my Mac, I actually don't know how you do screen cap on Windows. And I suppose I can Google it, right? Alt print screen. Stares at his keyboard, wondering where that print screen key is. I have an MX keys, and it's been giving me some grief. And I see no such thing as a print screen. Business Insider now gives me a response to, you know what? No, you're not, because you might have paid for that. No. Well, CNET's going to annoy me too. I can see it coming. Windows key Shift S. Okay. Now here. Windows keys Shift S. All right. So let's get a solid white background and let's focus on this. And I want some curve connectors, I think. Not connectors, that's not gonna work. I think I need just curves. Right, so what I wanted to to write here is that, so there is a movement where, or maybe this is not the right way, or this is not the right position for box for scripts. I think scripts might live in another dimension, to be honest. But here would be the opening credits. And in an opening credits, you'd have a number of elements that are actually, you know, prepackaged. Either like, actually, I can write some of that. It's quite interesting. You'd have things like the logo, right? This would be completely this will be repeated from even one video to the other. And then you'd have like something like a theme that would be maybe per series, right? So my pure script series, or could have a specific theme, and my streaming things series could have a different theme. And they would combine with, like, you know, as assets, and it would be fairly easy, you know, to. But I guess one other thing that you would need there is the title, right? You need, and that would, to do a good title on YouTube, actually, in truth, you want to do it, if you're trying to do a you know, fairly dominantly improvised, or transform a dominantly improvised session onto something that is more, I need to find a name for this, right? A more packaged 20-minute video, like, yeah, going from 3 hours to 20 minutes. Then on the YouTube screen here, you'll need to God damn it, I am having trouble with my English right now. That's definitely the wine kicking in. It would be easier in French. Okay, so right, both the YouTube title video that will be used as the title that's in HTML here, and the one that go on the whatever I forget here, thumbnail. Thank you, thumbnail. That's what it is. This thumbnail, which I'll probably add as a list of things that we would, the thumbnail title, that's actually metadata. That's, yeah, let's just write thumbnail for now. And title. Title, I mean, all of these things are dynamic to a certain extent. You know, logo is dynamic if I'm not the only one using the tool. Title is dynamic by video, theme is dynamic by series, thumbnail is dynamic by video as well. So I'll put the thumbnail below to reflect like there's some form of life cycle periodicity or something like that. And so title would come after. So I want to minimize the amount of time that's spent. And so this is quite useful representation if in fact what I'm drawing here is rather what's happened on stream, and so therefore something like in the kind of 3 hour, let's say 3 hour mark, or let's say 4 hour mark. And this would be, the edit. Well, calling it an edit, I think makes sense. And then, so here, what we're saying is that the edit itself, the product, is something like 20 minutes. I think that's but probably shorter might even be better, right? But 20 minutes not bad. And this will depend, right? But this is sort of the use case I'm considering now. And so this is basically the overhead, you could say. And one of the goals would be to say that this is between 3 and 5 minutes. I think that if that's the case, then then actually you're in somewhere in the market that makes this potentially really a good business idea, in fact. So this is maybe post. Yeah, I guess you could say this is post. It's almost like most of the production. And that's a little bit from my standpoint, right? Meaning that that's the things where maybe we can even diminish that if there's a lot of collaborative effort before, but I don't think it can go much below that for a 20-minute video with quite good quality. Because basically what you're going to need to do is, redo a number of things. And so each redone section will have to be re-narrated, right? And in the case of there's audio only and video, and so like let's say narrated and or video, audio narration, or video presentation, video performance. Then in that case, doing a re can actually be more time consuming, possibly. But if you recorded, or if you have all of your raw material properly composable because they're independent, then maybe that's not so hard. In specifics, I'm talking. Yeah. No, I think that's correct. I think that's correct. Okay. Except you couldn't. No, you could redo. Yeah, you could redo it, right? So it's just a matter of having, sort of a decent studio, and we could even say home studio environment. Okay. So what my post process is like is maybe needs to be expressed here a little bit more with words. So there would be audio re-recording, and maybe video talking head Riri, and that's presuming that also, I guess also there's a path to just verify that that if possible that the edits narrative moments are kind of well identified in some way, I guess. So it's like the so narrative arc, or so segments, and how is this called? Is they beats, right? And that's even more important, I think, in terms of, because that's related to content, and when that's checked, then you can move on to saying, okay, well, in that case, I need to do this transition and this transition because it doesn't work together. And so like a quick, then I think off the cuff, like just fresh out of doing a stream, then you're ready to go. Everything is still in your head. You can probably be like, oh, okay, I just finished saying this. So in that case, right, the Riri environment in that case is just what if I'm performer for this, then what do I need to see on screen in order to be good at doing that? I need to do like a punch in, punch out, like how it's done in a studio when you're doing a retake over an existing complicated take. Then the current version will be played to you, the master, whatever you currently are happy with as a recording, and then you'll know that you'll punch out or that you'll punch in at some point, that you'll start playing, and that you'll record over, and that you'll pick it up. So that should be exactly what the interface is, right? And so the question is, in that moment, I think it's really useful to be in this mode already, right? Because, and so in this mode, I think what's also appearing is that we would have, in fact, can I go back? I think I'm talking now about moving this a bit below, such that there's actually like the segment work is sort of done well, in fact, is this just a segment work? Intro, it's not really, right? That would be a kind of a transition here in my example. So, and this wouldn't necessarily be a Riri, by the way, this because it could be something that just needs to be done. It's clear that it needs to be done after a stream, that you need to do an intro. So it's just an intro. Okay. And this could be a transition, okay. So you would know in the script that you need to write or perform an intro, and that would probably occur. I mean, it's possible you'd reuse the one from the stream, but probably you wouldn't. In most cases, you wouldn't. And what else? Yeah, so you kind of need, like, it makes sense to think of them as, you can think of them as beats, right? You know, something happens here, you know, something happens here, you know, something happens here, and it's well identified. And I don't know what the current thinking on how this should be, but that could be something, right? Possibly. And then I guess you could always think of these as segments, but you might also, you know, it's a bit arbitrary. You might think of this as a segment. I think it would be easier, in fact, to think in terms of points of like highlights in terms of specific moments, and it could be specific sequences, right? So I guess it does tie into the highlight idea in the Twitch video producer. I didn't really finish my thought earlier on teleprompter. That's something I've been thinking also in relation to folks doing music tutorials and things like tabs, and like there's this great YouTube channel called Cover Solutions, where the YouTuber is a bass player that also that transcribes well-known bass performances and replay them online with the transcription at the same time, scrolling on screen. And that's kind of like a prompter thing. I mean, he obviously doesn't need the prompter, but scores or scripts, you know, flowing by. That's the same concept, and it would surely be easy to have something like this if you had like a bit of a canned intro. I mean, I guess after a while you remember it. It'd be easy to do it, but I realized that my sign-offs, for instance, are, you know, my intros are generally, you know, they're whatever they are. I'm not a really skilled orator or streamer, but my send-offs are objectively bad. I'm like, see you some other time, next time, see you on the next stream. I think for me, it would really help to have a set of things, and I could read it with heart, and I would make it relatively okay, but it would be better than me stumbling. And you know, some amount of stumbling is okay, especially if it's Saturday night and if you had a bottle of wine. I mean, not a bottle of wine. I had a glass of wine. Okay. So this is quite a bit of progress on UX thinking. Haven't done anything with the teleprompter idea yet here, but I think it should basically be part of the script of the grid interface somehow. Or I did say that it should go into basically, like there should be a performer overlay, right? That's what it, that's what we want, I think. So let's say if this was what I call display. And then we would also have a performer overlay with things like exactly the teleprompter. And that's exactly in the way that, you know, I actually don't see the bar that you guys see. In fact, I removed my Windows taskbar at the bottom, and if I could go at the bottom or hit a keyboard shortcut and then see some performance or performance related information without necessarily you guys seeing it. I mean, I could also turn my head to my second monitor. That might be the easiest thing, but in any case, that would be a different place to put it. I think there is a concept like that in Streamlabs. The concept of projectors. I think like you can create output projectors, and these end up being displayed online like this in their own screen, and well, it's a little bit different what you do to make them display only to me or you, or how to actually activate it, but also how to actually define what the routing is going to be. So it's almost like maybe this could be considered as a return channel, like I was showing you guys on Ableton Live. See, in Ableton Live, you actually have a return. I'm actually firing it up, and so it could be something that could be programmed here. So returns are usually things like indeed reverb or delay, but okay, I'm gonna open this. Right, so the returns are usually right above the master track in that in the track view. In our case, this could be here basically prompter, something like that, or yeah, more performer overlay, I think is the better titling, because basically you take, maybe there'll be a prompter, there will certainly be a prompter track or script track, in fact, and that would be assigned to the prompter with the sends to the prompter. So that, I think that works, and if we transpose it, then I think we have a overlay here, and then, well, I have a data track, as already mentioned, that would be part of a script, and it could be in a data group, or it could just be script. And so in this interface, how would I then do the routing? So let's imagine that this one of these would be script, and that this would actually be an identified track like this. Then we would, let's see, I need to have this in front of my eyes. This is not, so we'd have, yeah, the performer overlay as something in this area. Like, yeah, so maybe I write overlay here, or here, overlay, or I put performer overlay. Oh, so we would need to move this yeah, that makes probably sense to do it like this, and then okay. So in fact, maybe there would be a grouping column here, and then there might be a send here. send button to the overlay would really be. So in fact, maybe we just say overlay. And that's going to go a bit too far. Okay. I think it will help to, yeah, send is here, I believe. Send. Mm-hmm. So this could be on my second screen, or also have a dedicated hardware interface. But even if it had a dedicated hardware interface, it would still be good to have a screen that's also visible for a larger, more expanded view. And okay, so preparing the performance would entail feeding some theme-driven things into the interface, and then when it's ready, then sort of moving through those things. And like the preparation phase would entail determining what this displays on the performer screen through a performer overlay. That could be something that shows on screen there for the performer to see that maybe the audience doesn't see. So for instance, I could have a certain way in which, follower count and subscription count, or current number of viewers, and song playing and things like that. That could also be displayed, but maybe in a way that is not made for consumption on stream, but more for consumption on an overlay, together with like performance, computer performance related things, and network quality related things, and then teleprompter things could also pop up there, right? And so, okay. So during the preparation, I just need to say, okay, this widget, the script, is plugged into here. And maybe, we could have a Twitch widget track, Twitch API. Data track, where we query things like the title for the stream. Okay. So then we perform, moving between things, playing a game, doing some coding, generating more metadata in the meantime, maybe adding some markers, marking when you move back and forth between live and be right back, all of this being then available continuously as the stream goes, in case someone else is working and then on the basis of the script is actually already working in a preset template that has some shape, maybe with some somewhat agreed sort of beat ideas or something, or something blank, and then just as the as the performance unfolds, then the live editor is, you know, assigning beats here and there, deciding to move them one direction, the other, you know, still watching the stream, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, he said this, so actually it makes more sense in that order. I mean, ordering might not be one of the things that is most often needed to be done, to be honest. It's going to, I guess it's going to be mostly cuts. And then, so let's write this down. Transformation. If ordering, I think, and it's mostly cuts and then retakes. You do with what you have. No point in trying to redo a whole thing, you know, unless like catastrophic problem. So then you move, you know, you remove the bad, and then you're like, oh, well, this could be better, and then you're done. Sort of. And then it a lot depends on how good the performance was in the first place. Including the performance or the interpretation of existing scripted moments. I think I should, the use cases are going to be quite different depending on whether it's a game or whether it's a video or a software programming thing. So I think I should really distinguish this performer role into gamer and like an open coder of sorts, right? That's kind of, I guess even what I'm doing now, like open coder or designer or something, right? Is there another use case I'm thinking of? Well, yes, there's the musician, and it's the music educator. I think I'm thinking of. I mean, I'm myself more interested in consuming, you know, material from music educators, but that's a domain I know a little bit because I do music. So okay, and these two things I do, and things I know quite a lot about. So this should be good, right? And from a scratch your own itch, you know your customer, all of these things. Right, and so this particularly the script needs are going to be really different. And I guess in the case of a gamer, you could even say that if they have the intro and the outro well worked out and they're performing it, then that cuts potentially that removes a lot of what's needed there. But it's not really true because if you look at people that do quite a lot of effort, and I'm thinking of Kibitz here, for instance, it's not. It's really entertaining and endearing, and but you can tell that there's quite a lot of work that goes into editing, and so some of it is actually almost like I need to study this a bit more, right? But there's maybe how many retakes. Like I'm thinking about the Satisfactory series. And there's a lot of moments where basically there's kind of like taking stock of what happened and sort of making a pause, you know, the kind of more of an expository manner, right? Like doing an exposition moment where it's like, okay, well, you know, I've been a moment where actually usually it's a recap, right? It's like summary recaps. And so these are done in the stream. And they're kind of they're kind of beat points that just emerge that from the nature of the content, And the performer or the streamer can be like, okay, well, I need to now make a summary. So during a stream, it could be the whole thing, but then you could be like, okay, now I move into doing 1 minute of summary for the 1 hour I've played. So there's a lot that's related to and expository takes or summarization moments. Markers, right? So this needs to happen regularly. And they kind of depend on what needs to be cut, and they also depend in that case a bit on, I mean, we want to make it depend as little as possible on the skills of any one given person. We want to take whatever they do that's really great and try and bake it into the structure of the tool so that it's easier to do the right thing. And so it could be that, but it's really hard to do detection of online detection of these things, like with AI or whatnot. Like, we could go that route, but I'm not interested in going that route. But it's about doing the minimum. So so it does come down to preparation and what goes inside that preparation, and whether there's some kind of a prescript, or yeah, what's the first version of the script? It's like a v0.1 of the script, and it should. And what's the minimum that you want? Like 3 things. It's a bit like what I do with my logs, right? But except that they're growing a bit unwieldy, right? So they will need to be specialized to only the thing that is the topic. I mean, maybe it's okay on stream to talk about all the number of things that I'm thinking about, including maybe my gaming, but maybe not. Maybe, I want to separate like the more engineering things from the gaming things. And but certainly I want to drill down at some point so that there's less noise and that it's more focused on on the signal that I want to focus on at any given moment in a stream, in any given stream. Yeah. And does Adam fit there? I don't know. That's about gaming, so maybe I should say gamer in gaming. So then it's quite scripted, right? By 3 things, I mean, something like what we've done, how we feel, and what we want to do. That's not a script, that's an intro. Okay. And then there's, then if it's play, then that's a completely different thing, right? So then it kind of, in content, it really depends. If it's play, then it's going to be a different thing. But if it's some kind of work thing or coding for me, then then I suppose that my to-do list play these roles a little bit. They describe what I tend to do and move through that. That's one way to think of it. But then there's a question about whether, it's just one stretch of content or whether there's some natural transition points which allow to move between maybe sort of, like 3 to 5 minutes of head down working on something, drilling down, and then a minute or less, in fact, of jumping to conclusions of some sort. And then maybe the 20 minutes is the assembly of all of these jumping to conclusions. That's possible, right? So these are the introns and these are the extrons. Exons. I thought they were extrons. Introns are inexpressed sequence in the genetic code. Only the exons actually get into the protein. So our introns are when we're actually doing some work, but we don't necessarily publish that. I mean, something I haven't said yet on stream, but that I have always on the back of my mind is that when we have the final product, I want it to be, in fact, packed with the metadata that allows to, in fact, go back to these introns and, go to them in as much detail as is interesting for the viewer. Which, if they're a professional or something, maybe they want to, drill down on something that someone did, and that they just want to cut from the more public presentation. Okay, well, that's pretty good. I mean, that's not a lot of coding, right? But I think that, I see some way in which this could work. I think there's a path there. There might be some jumps still, and especially in how we, like, what happened in preparation, what happened in performance, the actual role of the tools, and really what I, to follow my advice, what I will want to do, or let's say something where I'm kind of adding a to-do list in here. I kind of want to do a paper, what is sometimes called a paper prototype. We're not going to do it on paper. We're actually going to do it in kind of the way that I've been doing it so far, which is basically sort of with these log files, and maybe with the markers, the Twitch markers, and we're going to wing it. So, well, I'm going to write this down, right? Well, I'm going to write down what a paper prototype is. In a to-do section that's at the beginning of this section. On design. And I'm going to detail what I mean by paper prototype here. So note that this is super different from library work, because library work is super focused, and that's also why I wanted to have a little bit of library work under my belt before jumping into something a bit more ambitious, because it requires quite a lot more structure, and it's also a longer term thing. But my paper prototype would be what? Would be using things like Twitch markers and my log file. Those will be some of the tools. And then I think I want to try composition. Because or we could do, live. So is there a little bit more research to do on existing tooling? I'm wondering. I mean, Streamlabs and OBS and all of this has actually a whole layer of automation, right? So we could be first trying to just talk through some API to these tools rather than trying to do a tool by ourselves or even starting from an existing tool, right? I mean, arguably doing some glue code or whatever, that's already doing a new tool, but maybe this could be done inside composition. I mean, I've done quite a bit of research on GStreamer in the past. That's also something that's actually pretty good to do some routing of multimedia pipelines, basically. Very configurable. And I know quite, I've already have a little bit of code around automating pipeline creation for GStreamer. So in a server context, that would work quite well as well, because that's something I haven't talked about at all yet, which is more of the the deployment dimension is one way to say that. Because there's a collaborative component. And that can be very well done probably with some kind of CRDT up to a certain point, probably. Meaning we don't want to do peer-to-peer video streaming, I don't think. We might. I mean, there's some really interesting stuff on that, like BitTorrent protocol-based video peer-to-peer streaming. That's not needed at the beginning, but at the beginning, CRDT, especially for metadata, could probably get things pretty far. And it's unclear whether this is also a priority, but I like this a lot. I'm talking about like something like a Twitch overlay. Imagine if you could have a lot of the metadata accessible. Yeah. But then I think there's an aspect that's best served by having a dedicated container deployed somewhere, basically. That would do a container that could do basically stream relaying, I think. So it's probably most of my public streams and sort of, editor focused streams. Hey Juan, what's up? Yeah, break time. Yeah, you're right. Let me finish that thought. I was actually pretty close to signing off, but it's good to see you. You've been doing lots of BattleTech, right? Stream relaying, yeah. Especially if we want to do Twitch, YouTube, sort of restreaming. Oh, cool. Let's take a break. What? It's tomorrow for me. Ooh, nice. What you've been printing. Okay. All right. That's nice. That's really nice. Let's see. Right. So from a deployment standpoint, there's, I mean, basically I'm saying that there's definitely a browser client to this, but there might be a desktop client. Composition is a desktop client, but I think we can do a lot of browser client-based things, especially if you have a JStreamer available somewhere. We can do a lot of multimedia pipeline, so including controlling that from the browser. And then if we can do CRDTs in the browser, then we kind of done in some sense with that part of the architecture. So client, a browser mostly, but maybe a desktop, especially for things like multimedia routing is what I'm saying. So GST. And that's maybe for the, the streamer's computer, but maybe it will be useful to also have some editors, clients be some kind of desktop app, even if it's more browser like Electron-based interface, but that there's a GST pipeline in the back to do all of the heavy lifting with the actual multimedia stream connectivity aspects. Although, to be honest, there's a lot to do with WebRTC here, but GST can also do WebRTC, and that's exactly the type of goofing around that I've been doing with GST, is plugging it to WebRTC frameworks and whatnot. Okay, so from this client, there'll be maybe ways to have a collaboration layer through CRDTs, and then maybe the video streaming as well, so some kind of relaying, and maybe the viewers would also. So yeah, maybe the viewers were also. I'm thinking that this is more for viewers, so I should annotate it. Twitch overlay is really more for viewers. But CRDT and all of that, that's more like for mods or editors. And same thing here. I actually think, yeah, we're talking desktop is mostly for the performer or mods or editors, whereas the browser is more for viewers. But obviously, if we write this in the same language and use the same libraries, then it's a huge win. And so container is more for from the performer's machine to the internet before even going to Twitch. So I think that having a relay like that is in fact a really good practice, especially if you want to multicast. Then it's better to have a machine in with a high connectivity line doing all of the connectivity things. Yeah, it's an added point of failure, but I think this isn't. I mean, I would feel like I need this pretty rapidly. From a security standpoint, it's also good. And would there be a need for something else? Well, yeah, stream relaying, and probably some of the like the origin for content proxying, content clip proxying, because we probably would run out of luck pretty fast with YouTube interface and Twitch interface. If we wanted to manipulate content from their end, we probably want to keep control of an archive of the original content with all of the stream, including the data, and then stream that to Twitch and YouTube. But all of the tooling would then index into those clips proxy onto into this archive basically. And so we could have a multi-resolution also dealt with at this level in a way that's appropriate for various consumption. And then we can grow and destroy Twitch and YouTube, of course. But what? Right. So I haven't been doing this of jumping to conclusions, but let me do it. So these are some of the few things that would be needed from the deployment standpoint. We need a client, and for viewers, this could be mostly happening in the browser, probably, you know, as a Twitch overlay or something. Performers would need a retake. Performers would need to use a desktop client with better capabilities for multimedia routing. And there'll be a collaborative layer included on the client, or maybe also with some server component. That would be using some of our work on CRDTs, but also maybe later evolve to streaming video in a peer-to-peer way. And maybe a container to do relaying of the streaming. Yeah, wow, I'm already boring myself just by repeating what I just said. So that's a UX friction to consider. Where can I write this? Okay, random thoughts. Repeating. No, actually, this is not where it's best. So I think it should be here. Friction in repeating what's just been said. Yeah. So that requires some kind of permanent evaluation of where we are in the stream and so on. So there's really something there about that the log captures a little bit, but as soon as I start having to move back and forth in the log, then it becomes difficult to follow. So, and that's really the same thought that I had with programming notebooks. And so does it mean that here I have time rolling in this direction? Should I go back to thinking about time going in up and down instead? So that's a good thing to add to our, maybe this is also research. No, it's design. Try and transpose. I have transposed the UI back. Transpose back the UI. To have so that time flows down like here in the log. Okay. So it kind of means using also a log as a UI component, which I don't know how it fits in between the grid interface and the timeline interface. But that's more of the log interface. And I'll think more about this next time. And we'll do indeed some more design about log interface. And research more existing tooling. Actually, does make sense to have those three things here. So that's it. I'll stop now. We have nice things to do for our next streaming tool session. And so I won't stream tomorrow, which will be my first break in a while, and then I start some new full-time position as an engineer. So I will probably have to move this to. I think I will move it to 8 p.m. I think that's a good time, and I probably do an hour or two, and not so much more. And hopefully we'll be able to continue a little bit on our Haskell work as well at some point and make some progress on the blog. But that's fun streaming tool related things. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you some other time. As I said over there in the intro, oh no, that wasn't in the intro. Where was it? I know I was supposed to sign off, but where did I write this outro? This was in the outro. Yes. Thanks, and see you next what?